Hello there, welcome back to the channel. And I thought today, well, it's after lunch, I thought I'd do a piece from scratch for me, but then I thought, why not record it? Because you guys love patches from scratches, if that's the plural. And so I thought I'd just, show you my process. And that's the beauty of Modular, is that this is effectively a blank canvas now. There's nothing fixed. I could take it in any direction I wanted. I did a video recently, which not many people saw, but it was about the current setup here on this tiny little, very densely packed rack, and which goes through the various layouts. So that all makes sense if you really want to sort of dig deeper. I talk about new modules and how things work together and so on, sounds versus utilities. But I'm going to start, the rack it's kind of partly normal, so all the cables up here are permanently connected. It's effectively a mixer matrix going through into a sort of stereo sum here, into the golden master, then a granulator, then an effects, and then out. So this is effectively a whole stereo bus going out here, and I just leave those connected because it'd be pointless doing it each time. One thing I do connect pretty often at the start is a MIDI. So this blue lead here is connected to this output from the QuNexus, and it's effectively MIDI units here. So I've only got 3 units that respond to MIDI, so I'll put them all together just so I can daisy chain them. So as well as having MIDI, 2 of them have got a daisy chain function. So I can go MIDI into the new GodSpeed, which is on track 1. Channel track 2 MIDI is the Disting EX, and track 3 MIDI is the PolyCinematic, which I think I'll set up first. One of the things I like to do, irrelevant sometimes of where it ends up, is just to create a bit of backgroundy, washy things so that things can sit above it. I suppose it's a bit like if any of you have ever done painting. Just checking cameras. Yeah. If ever you've done like watercolor painting, you do a sort of wash in the background, and then you can start to add the detail and so on. So I'm going to start with the PolyCinematic stereo, which is great. I'm going to put it through some little loopy holes and things just to keep cables nice and out of the way. So this should be on MIDI channel 3. Like I said, I've not really tested the routing apart from knowing that the stereo bus works. So it just goes into a stereo there, and we've got. So let's do a infinite release, and then I can excuse me, alter the tone with the filter here. It's got built-in filter. It's got various sounds. So this is like stringy sounds. It's got square waves, and this control, a detune, allows you to create quite fat pad sounds. Add fifths or add octaves, but I like this initial detune, which works quite well on the first string sound. So that's good. I think we need, even straight away, I'm going to modulate the filter on this one because there's not much you can do CV-wise on the PolyCinematic. The Monumatic, the new one, you can. So I'm just going to put an LFO. So you've probably seen me talk about the Neo Trinities, so I'll call it Neo Trinity NT2 F, which is this one, LFO, this is the speed. It's on a triangle wave at the moment, and lots of shortcut keys you have to press, but you get used to them after a while. And then the attenuation I've got quite low already. That's a higher attenuation. But I don't want the filter to be really obvious, so I'm just going to do it really subtle, nice and slow. And that'll do for that one. And just get started. I'll leave it playing in the background. I've got control over the volume here. I've also got control, I'll just check it's working over the stereo spread, because yeah, that's working. So there's you press this sort of shift key and frequency and you can actually decide on the stereo spread. You've also got control over the output volume, because this one doesn't have volume. Anyway, back to infinite release, just so there's something playing in the background. Disting. I've got to do my usual trick of this one. First of all, just load in a multi-sample, and I'm going to one of the reasons I've got down the bottom here is I'm going to stereo loop it. What this allows me to do is layer up sort of background loops. So there's the in stereo, and then the out stereo I'm going to put also into this stereo sum here, which is cool because it means I can so let's just do a bit of cable management. No, I don't want to do that one. What was I saying? Yeah, it doesn't tie up these panable channels, so I can just put two stereos into here if I'm going to end up with a big complex piece. I'm just freeing up, making sure I don't cover up the mixer there. Oh, one thing I want to do, just from a lighting perspective, because all the lights at the moment are coming from, hopefully you can hear me, the right hand side. So I'm just going to put a light on this side as well, because I realise when I use my right hand, set this full intensity. Whoops, when I use my right hand, it casts a big shadow, so you probably can't see what's going on. Let's see. Anyway, so that's just to give you a little bit of, so you can see if I cast a shadow from the right, it's going to show you what's going on. Right, what was I saying? So we go from the disting on track 2 through the stereo looper here. And already we got something nice and orchestral going. Generally with the looper I've got a choice. I can sync it with a master clock, which I'm going to reset actually, just to remind me. Be useful to actually reset it. So what I've done there is just reset all the clocks to their default. So I could actually clock the looper so that the loop itself stays in time with a master clock, or I can just have it running freely. I think for this one I'm going to have it running freely, meaning I just press record on both of them, and it doesn't really matter if it's out of sync with the main clock or not. If I wanted to put the clock on, I'd choose an output there, go to clock 8 for example, and have every 64 steps. That's going to be the loop length. You can actually preset the loop length, by the way, so I'll show you how to do that. In fact, I'm changing my mind now, so what that is as soon as I start this, it will start the loop, and then after 64 steps, if I keep at this tempo of course, it will stop the loop, and that will then be the length for the track. And it's a good way of keeping the loop length in time. So it means if you play chords, which I won't do now because it's actually recording, they will remain locked to whatever else is happening. Excuse me. So 64 steps, I think I'm on 118, I didn't even think of a master tempo. So there we go. Now I can actually take this off because the loop length is fixed. And then whenever I just want to record or put it into record to capture something, I can just do this. But the loop's going to remain at the 64 steps. So just keep an eye on that. I have to make sure when I'm playing that you know, I don't capture something that's happening. Sorry if it was triggered, but I can play it. I can press it, so I can actually go like this. And now turn off the loop, and it's going to carry on the original triggered loop. Anyway, I'll leave that for the moment. You'll hear the strings come in occasionally. Right, the next one is probably let's just get some basic percussion set up. So I'm going to use Ornament and Crime to control. There's the loop. To control a kick and probably a hi-hat stroke percussion. So I just need to trigger Ornament and Crime with a basic tempo. So let's go with some, in fact I use these expander clocks, so that one's ×2 into the Euclid X here. I've got it upside down, so it's you probably noticed that the inputs are a bit confusing for me sometimes. So we'll do the top one of the Euclid into this analog kick, trigger in, and then we'll have that out to one of these non-affected channels up here. So let's see if that's working, which it is. So this is on a Euclid at the moment, 16/4, and let's try 16/8. Doesn't sound very uniform. I think I'm on the sorry, I was on the hi-hat channel there, and again these are reversed, so it's a bit confusing. So it allows me to now on the Ornament and Crime say choose 16/7 as a Euclidean. And then another thing as well, while I'm performing and setting up sounds, this U-burst is actually super useful because it's got an input gain here, which the whole stereo bus is going through, and I can actually use these lights to give me an idea of if I'm going to distort the audio recording. So when it's on the yellow here, everything should be fine. As soon as I start peaking in the red, then I know things are a bit awry. I could actually play with this analog kit because it's beyond just a bass drum. You can also get all these sorts of weird things as well. And you know, because we've got quite a soft opening going on there, I'm going to set this to really quite like 16/3, so very slow sort of kick sub-bass thing when I want that in. So I'll just set that actually on a note, which is kind of cool. I can actually just set this, you can't see all of this, but I'm going to set it to 8/1, so it's going to be a regular pulse now. Right, I'm going to get stuck on each sound. You know, I try to do these things quickly. Obviously when I'm talking, things get a little not twisted, but busy. Let's try a sequence after I've got a quick hi-hat thing going. So it's good to have these percussion set up. All the time as well I'm thinking where things are going to be on the mixer. That's the beauty of doing things fast-ish, is that I can remember where everything is. Obviously these two stereo things, let's make that, these two stereo things are kind of preset. Might make that random so it's not as, so I've now just put a random LFO shape into that filter now, so it's not just swelling up and down all the time. Right, so this is percussion coming from the other side of the Euclid X on the Ornament and Crime. We've got a bit of control over that. We can have the tuning. The length of it, and then obviously the volume out of this 2-channel sample loop. I think what I'm going to do with this one is put it into this mixer, which goes through a sync stereo delay. It's not synced at the moment, so I need to just do that. It's this Disting Mark IV, and that needs something like a 1.3 clock to produce the lovely 8s, which I just set on clock 8. Thinking about a bit of panning. Let's have a listen to the bass drum. Cool. I can also put a bit of resonance on that background. You wouldn't generally have this pad, for example, constantly just going like that in a piece. It's just annoying at the moment because we've got it exposed. Right, so a couple of percussions there. Let's have some kind of fixed sequence. So this is good. The octane's good because it allows you to choose steps, as in, you can cancel steps. So you can start with one step and then control what gets played at any one moment. Use a longer lead. I was singing in tune there. Longer lead. I forgot what I was doing that. 16 times clock into the clock in here. So that's going to be quite fast. Might go half that speed. So let's go from clock 5 here. Make it a ×4, I think. And ×4 still fast. So let's do a ×2. There we go. So now this, I just need to choose what instrument I want the octone to play, and let's go into the surface. It's quite nice that this is all close to each other, so we've got a gate trig, so I can use these tiny little leads, CV, interval, octave in. They also work with this one, they also work with the twin waves and so on, but we'll put them there for the moment. So I just need an output from Surface, which is a modeling synth, and again I'm going to put this into, let's put this into channel 2, which is the a little bit of tuning here in a second. Channel 2, which is also going to be the delayed one. Right, I need to tune it, so what I'm going to do is just put the octane on one step for a second. Right, the way I often do this is the new GodSpeed has got a great way of finding a note C, so I'm going to actually just temporarily put this into channel 2 of this mixer, play a C on track 1. And that'll be my C. Now I know this octone, well, I can actually kill all of the background stuff. I can turn the loops down. I'm going to leave it running, of course. So the loops have got a mix control as well. So the octone, is tuned to a major scale. And I'm actually changing the notes with this first knob. Oh, that's on pentatonic. Right, I need to change it back to a major scale. And that should be E flat. So that should be a C there, if that made sense. So I was able to go up the scale and just go 2 steps off the root note. So let's see. So So I just need to tune the surface to that note. Oh, it's fine tuning here, sorry. Now when I play multiple notes of this, that should be a C minor thing. Right, so the one question I have to ask myself, is that a good tempo? Is that the speed I want? Because I can change the master clock now and just go to ones and let the delay do some speaking for me. I've also got to choose the model that I want on here, so we've got an awful lot to choose from. Sort of marimba, bell-like sounds. Could go sort of horror movie-esque type thing. I could go into the bass drum's kind of cool, just for this sort of percussive type stuff, which would go well with, like, you know, the kick, which would provide a nice counterpoint to that. I'm remembering already the surface, so the surface is into 2, so the panning is critical in the thinking. I'll put the, so I'm already thinking that might be a nice sort of breakdown build, you know. I can change the decay. I could even modulate the decay on here so that it creates some interesting sort of, I don't know, modulate decay, LFO modulate it. So I'm actually going to use the Neo Trinity right side here for a lot of the modulation. So on E, I'm going to use LFO. Now what I'm doing is modulating the decay of this sound. Just get rid of any automation. It's currently set to triangle, and then oh, the other thing is syncing these, which is I'll do in a second, syncing the modulation. So this is, see, I'm already getting OCD about these cables in the way. So what was I saying? Let's do that. So I'm modulating the decay from channel E here. I can also control the amount, the attenuation of that. So it goes from like staccato to not too sustained. Too decayed. And the other thing is, I've got to remember now that E of this, you know, there's 12 modulation points here. E is going to that decay on this one. Let's just a bit more. So that I'll do for now. I've got control over what plays on the octane. Let's bring in 4th step at 5. And because the decay is being modulated, each one of those notes may be long, maybe not long. I could actually, you know, set some kind of melodic thing in advance, but that's actually getting into the piece. Generally, you sort of set up your palette, sound palette, and then you work on the precise melodic elements and things like that. I could do it now, but well, it's exposed, I suppose, but it depends what else is going on. So if we bring back, for example, a nice long sustained pad, let's go for a C minor 7 type thing. Just check the clocking's working. Yeah. I don't actually want to change the clock, because if you remember, sorry, stop it, because that triggered this loop. So now when I introduce the loop again, it should still be in time with the master clock. Because this is I've done some tests on these loopers, and I've found, you know, over about 20 minutes it doesn't go out of sync, because if PAMS is left going, this will remain completely locked to it, even though it's not being triggered on every loop. So I think what we're getting there is just a bit of the decay, creating some interesting cross rhythms. Just check track, yeah, everything should be working. Yeah, I think I might keep that kind of percussive. Right, so we've got that element. We're new GodSpeed, I'm actually going to play live. So currently this is in to this channel here. And it's a really flat, foldy tone, that one, so I want to modulate it straight away. And again, I'm going to use the Neo Trinity this side for a modulation of the timbre. So D, LFO, make sure it's got enough oomph, attenuation or not. And now this is unsynced at the moment, so I'll show you what I mean by that. I'm going to sync using a 16 clock both these Neo Trinities, which are going to act as modulation and rhythmic elements. So there's, that one's locked to PAMs now, and a little baby lead. Now the right one's locked. So what I can do, for example, let's just bring something rhythmic in. So you can hear that this LFO, which is controlling the new GodSpeed, is actually synced. If I want something very rhythmic, I can actually choose like a different LFO waveform. So I'll choose the shark fin, or shark sawtooth. That way, we got so it's the modulation. What you're hearing there is the modulation affecting the timbre, creating this effect of it being triggered. And as you know, with the Neo Trinity, I can automate all of that. So one decision I have to make is, you know, do I have that on delay as well? Because I've still got a couple of channels here, so it's pretty easy to say take the new GodSpeed, put it into the delayed mixer, channel 3 here. That way I can get some more extended things. Let's just kill the automation. And perhaps just go back to the triangle wave, nice and slow. Make it a bit more more attenuation, so it has more effect. So I think the idea here is that might be a nice solo sound to bring in. Or, you know, like a sub bass. Nice and low. And even bring in the new GodSpeed's own sub bass. And also, I can make this random, so it's just, again, a bit like the pad here. So it's not the same all the time, does this up and down. So if I choose a smooth random, it will now give it a little bit of variation on the modulation. So that'll do for that one. I think of that as like a solo-y thing. Right, one thing I want now as well is some real moving bass with all of this. So I'm going to use, I could use this Precision VCO. Just check everything's going. Still, are you still going up there? Yeah. Right. Precision VCO, which is great now because I can get down to clicky levels. In fact, let me show you that. It's that time where I start coughing, too much talking. What do I want to do? I just want to show you literally how low can you go. So I'll just take I could actually use this as an effect. So we've got a tuning control here. So I'm just going into 2. So that's actually, believe it or not, you know, below audio levels, obviously, so you can just increase the tuning. I just tuned it by ear there. I could use the square wave and manually pulse wave modulate it. Interesting to know what that is actually a note. Let's try a triangle. It's going to be super hard to hear. But that, just keeping an eye on the levels there. That may be a nice, just some sort of sub thing to bring in with the kick. Obviously they're going to reinforce each other, and that's where this multi-band compressor will come in a second. Right, so there's a bit of sub, but I actually want a moving sub bass, something that's a bit more melodic, also to bounce against, perhaps with the strings and the sequences and things like that. Let's do that one. So I'm going to use the QuNexus synced to a 1x clock. So that'll start moving now. This is, I'm going to route it into C, single note. I'm going to take the CV out of that into the mini synth, and then gate out into the gates, of course. Yep, and then a nice long lead into the mixer for now. I could start thinking about putting them through VCAs and modulating those, but just for the moment I'm going to keep it pretty basic. Right, so the QuNexus, I'm just going to reset it and choose a smaller length, perhaps just 4 notes, and fill them up. So that's there. It should just be playing a C, so I need to check that. So I'll go back to my trusty new GodSpeed. If I remember where it is now, it's number 3. And I'll make sure that this should be playing a C. Sorry, the mini synth. Just turn off the pad a second while we do this. So to create a bass sound on this, I want obviously a lower register. There, I've still got the new GodSpeed there. I'll leave the strings going. So a nice big juicy well, like a bass line, so I'm going for a bit of resonance. I don't want it that rhythmic, of course, so what I'm going to do is choose on the Cosmos Quenser, I've got whole tutorials on this, something like a 10-step loop, reduce the amount of notes it plays based on the clock. Let's have a bit of rhythm so you can hear its relevance to that. Sorry, I'll just turn the strings down a touch because they're getting in the way of listening to the bass. I'm just changing the envelope here, tactic A and release. And the delay's getting in the way a bit at the moment. Let's just turn it off for a sec. Right, I've got control on the Cosmos Quenser of the register, so I can start to get more bassy now. Now we just need a scale, so I'm going to choose a basic minor scale, which yeah, I'll enter in, so I can actually choose, because the latest firmware of this one you can actually tap in scales. So I'm going to choose scale, and then just go around and choose the notes that I want it to pick from. So we got a C, we want an E flat, we want an F, we want a G, an A flat, and a B flat. And now we just need to tell it to you know, go wild and start choosing them. So I'll turn the scale off and now choose the range of its selection. Reduce the register, keep it in the bass range. Obviously the wider the range means it's going to be possibly going super low and super high, so I just need to limit the range and also control the register until I get the region I'm interested in. And the other thing is the shape. So as it chooses notes, it's got a pattern it uses. So it might go, you know, up a few, down a few, stay in the middle a bit, and so on. So I can actually choose different patterns to give it a different style of note selection, probability of note selection. And now it's just a bit fast, of course, so I can either slow the clock down into it or use its internal clock divider based on the clock coming in. So I'm going to make it half the speed. So it's going super slow, which is what I want. And now I'm also going to randomly rotate the algorithm so as it doesn't play on like the same trigger pattern each time. So I'm just going to say randomly change this Euclidean, so you can see these are changing hopefully on the camera. And then there's a bit of fine tuning on that. I've got control on the sound of the bass, so I can bring a bit more sort of square wavy stuff. I can also bring in a sub bass if I want to get super ridiculously low. And then I want to control the resonance and the filter, so I can create a bass that just sits there nicely. And like in a performance, I can control the register of the bass. I can even go from it being a bass, for example, to very quickly just switching a couple of things, and all of a sudden I can turn it into something a bit more high-end melodic. Turn the speed up. I'm always wary of touching cables. There shouldn't be any good quality modules shouldn't generate any sort of clickiness when you're touching these, of course. And then back to basics. Slow it down again. Bit of tuning. The thing about analog synths is that the linearity of the CV input changes sometimes over time, so when you go into the bass register it might actually shift the tuning slightly, so just keep an eye on that. So what have we got so far? It's like I said, you're building up the details. We've got strings, pads, so pad, strings, solo-y type sound. We've got a bit of modulation already. I can add more triggering modulation to that in a second. We've got a sort of analog kicky thing. We've got a percussion sound. We've got a sub bass over here. And then probably one of the main features is this surface thingamajig, which I'll leave at that speed because it works well with the delay. In fact, I can actually go to almost loop type delays for build-up type things. I can change the sound on this. I've panned the surface to one side and the percussion-y sound to the other, just because they're sort of similar tempos. Just adjusting the percussion sound to taste. That's kind of where I want it. Frequency-wise. Right, I think we're done. Let's bring a lot of the elements in. Like, as in any performance, you don't bring them all in at once, but it's also nice to know that when you do bring all the elements in, they kind of work together anyway, just in case you do want a sort of big build. We've got this sub thing as well over here. We've got quite a few bass elements. It might get muddy, but we'll play with that. So even though I've got that string thing going, of course, I can just go to channel 2 and add live layers. Build the piece up that way. And then likewise, I can just go to channel 3 and I don't need this pad to be always on. I can just play it live in. Need a bit of release. That's those leave the new GodSpeed running. Another thing with the new GodSpeed, it just reminded me actually, because it's constantly on. There, you can hear that. I think let's just turn everything off. So that new GodSpeed is why, you know, I've got VCAs and LPGs and things, low pass gates, primarily for that. So I'm going to actually use a rhythm track from one of the Neo Trinities to control yeah, it's volume. I don't need that one. So I can go from here into a VCA and then a little baby lead, which is why I've got the VCA close to the mixer. back into the mixer where it was before, and then I'm going to just take a pretty basic envelope stroke no, LFO as well will work into this VCA. So now I can control the new GodSpeed by this, so I can have it as a very soft triangle wave like that. I think I'm on this one, so let's go full CV. Control the attenuation. And I can also, because it's synced of course, so just check the clock's on. Yeah, it's in time with the clock. I'll keep it bipolar. No, I'll take it non-unipolar. So it means I can actually change the waveform and all of a sudden get rhythmic as well as the modulation going to it. So you can have cross-rhythmic. So I'll just show you it's in time with the clock. That way, even if I do leave it on, sustained, I can have it doing something rather than just being this constant tone. I can even turn it into a bass, like a single note bass. So we've still got the modulation going into it from D. So I might make that more uniform as well, because it will allow me to do cross modulation. So this will be triggering its gate, if you like. This will be triggering its modulation. That way we can have this kind of effect. Oops. If I actually have the notes. That way we got this is triggering the on and off the VCA. This is triggering the modulation. And if we carefully place them, you can have almost like a polyrhythm effect. And as I said, the bass, you're a bit bassy with it. One thing you have to do with this sort of free flowing LFO, it's synced to the clock, but you've still got to start it at the right point and things. Right, the other things, talking about building up the layers. As I said, now the new GodSpeed can sort of do that kind of thing in the background, even if you leave it on and then build up the other parts again, you know. Some strings. Have a nice sustained pad. Right, so you can see it's not, even though there's lots of layers happening there, it's not super busy, and And that's an ideal sort of position, because when you start to go into performance mode, you tend to overdo it a bit sometimes, you know, just having everything going crazy because you just start to build every part and it can get very busy. But that's a nice sort of starting position. I'm going to use the Golden Master here just to do some bit of compression. So I'm just compressing the mids and the highs. I won't compress the bass. If I'll turn the compression off on the bass, give a bit of imaging to the highs and the mids, and then I'm going to see if I can boost the bass. Probably doesn't need a lot. We've also got this sub, remember, which I think what I'll do with this sub is actually have it audible. And because it's buzzy, I'm going to filter it. I haven't done a lot of filtering yet, so I'm going to find where it's going in there, use a shorter lead, put it through a filter, and then modulate the filter just to give some character to that buzzy sound. So we'll use this MMF here, and then go low pass out of it into the same input. So now we can do those sorts of things, and I just need, I'd suggest a random modulation coming from, let's choose C, so we're already 4 modulations already on that Neo Trinity, into the frequency. So I'll just go to C, check the attenuation. A sort of subtle, just to get that little frequency spread going, and then make it into a random LFO. So when I do introduce this, perhaps by itself, you know, I'd knock out a lot of the other elements and just have it there as its own little sub bass. And then I just want to make sure it's not overpowering. And that may work nicely with, you know, like one of the big reverbs. A bit of granulation. Let's turn the PolyCinematic off. And I just know when I'm performing now, I've got something perhaps to break down into, just the sub bass. Get rid of that loop, because you can hear by itself. I could pulse modulate that or even frequency modulate it, but if I wanted, by the way, to just get the longer lead. Do I need long? Yeah, probably. If I wanted to frequency modulate it at any point, I could actually do it manually and quantize it. So I could choose, in fact, let's choose this one, don't need long lead. So B on Neo Trinity 1 into the frequency in. And I'm going to choose CV mode. So now I've got control over the actual note of this precision VCO over here. That's currently just set to full range. In fact, I could just check. And what you're hearing as well is the resonant frequency producing these sort of harmonics as well. And it provides me with a nice bit of sound effecty thing at some point in the piece. It's getting a bit waily. If I want this to be tuneful, then I can quantize it. So channel B, let's turn the quantizer on. Whoops. I changed it to LFO. Didn't want to do that. Quantizer. And all the time you can hear the automated frequency modulation, which is a random one coming from this side. And it's nice that I can get right down into sub audio levels. If I want to take the quantizing off, I'll just do that, and then I'm back to the slidey thing. And I can automate this as well, so just choose 32 steps. So that's stay quantized. Just turned it into a minor scale. So I'm just getting, you know, set up to play that at some point if I need to. Initially set it very low. And again, what you're hearing there in the high frequencies is actually just the resonant modulation. There we go, that's a nice sort of point to bring it in. And I think we're kind of ready. You know, I've got all the elements together. It's now a performance and balancing and building, taking it somewhere and then bringing it back down again, taking it somewhere else, and so on and so forth. And that's kind of where we are. Of course, I'll change sequences and change the notes, and I'll constantly changing the mix and adding global effects. May change the mastering at some point. Definitely changing the sounds across modeling and the types of bass sounds I've got going over here. New GodSpeed I'll change manually, as I will the PolyCinematic. Disting is sort of a thing unto itself. It requires a bit of menu diving if you want to go in there and do some sound changes. But anyway, I think we're all good. So hopefully that gave you an idea into putting a patch together like this. And so hopefully you'll check out the performance. All right, see you again.